This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation.
Time for school.
Hey, school success makers. Welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, 𝒚𝒊𝒎𝒏, and I'm joined by a new friend out of the great state of California, and his name is Tim Lugg, and he is the founder of Foothill Christian Academy in Upland, California. And I got connected with him, probably a few months back, and I got to know his story and a little bit about the school that he helped found. And I was like, you know what? We need to hear more about this story of the school and the makeup of the school. And that's what this episode will all be about today. But before we jump into all of those things, of course, we always pass it off to the guests to introduce themselves first. So Tim, welcome to the podcast today, sir.
Good morning. It's good to talk with you.
It's going to be a blast, man. Well, before we jump into everything, I do always ask everybody the same question, Tim. So if I was to visit you in Upland, California, which I've never been there before. I've been to California multiple times, but I don't think I've ever, unless I just passed by it without knowing I passed right by it. But if I was to visit you in Upland, California, what would you say, Mitchell, you need to eat this and do this to experience Upland, California?
Yeah, it's in LA. So it's a Disneyland of entertainment in LA. Upland's about an hour east of the general LA area. So, and there actually is a lot of places to eat right there in Upland or around there. So for food, I would say Elvira's Grill. It is Mexican food. I mean, you're in Southern California, so you got to have that. And they just do a great job, have a great reputation. There's one in Claremont as well as Upland. The Claremont one's actually a little bit nicer. And Claremont's just a nice town. That's where the Claremont universities are and everything. Nice college town. So for food, I'd say there. For where to visit, I would say to head up to Oak Glen. I mean, it's not in Upland itself. There's an old part of Upland, but Oak Glen is fun. It's up in the mountains. It's cooler. And especially in the fall, they grow a lot of apples. You can do you-pick apples. A lot of different varieties, and it's just fun for the family. And even out of the fall, when there's fall color and everything, it's nice in the summer because it's cooler. And so again, they have a lot of times you can go to barbecue places, and there's hikes, and there's just a lot of things to do up there. So Oak Glen is a nice diversion that's out of Upland a little ways.
And you're saying, is it two separate words? It's not Oakland. We're not talking about Oakland. We're talking about Oakland.
No, it's oak as in the tree, Glen. So I was saying it too fast. Yep. Oak Glen.
I was like, this doesn't sound like Oakland, California.
No, it's up in the mountains. Not really high. I mean, there's lots of things to do around here, but that's one that's actually nice for families.
Awesome. All right. Well, I get some Mexican food and go pick some apples. That sounds like a good old time to me. So that sounds good. As we dive into some content today, give everybody just a quick little background on you and yourself and the school. And I know we have some specific questions we're going to dive into about the school, but just quick background on yourself and the school to start.
Yeah. So I am retired from a long-term head of school at Grace Academy, actually in Washington, California. And after I retired, the church my son is a pastor of was talking about starting a hybrid Christian school. And so they contacted me, and we were totally willing to move from Washington to California for a couple of years to get the school started. And so I worked 1 year remotely And then we moved down there just a couple of months before school opened. Even that year I was working remotely, I came down for 2 months at separate times just to make sure things were moving ahead on the ground. And so then in fall of 2023, we actually opened school with 34 students. And the next year we had 56 students. And then this year they have 90 students. And so it's a very successful launch, and the church has really embraced it, and it's doing great.
Love that. So I love to hear that the growth has continued year over year. For those that are listening, I know there's obviously different models of school. There's so many that are out there, which is actually really exciting and really cool. Specifically, I know about the U.S., in my opinion, just because there is so many different ways to run a school, to do education here. For those listening, maybe aren't sure exactly what the hybrid school model is, I'd love you to share a little bit about what that is and y'all's specific model that you guys are using there.
Sure. So my primary experience as head of school in Washington was with a traditional 5-day school. I had grown interested in the hybrid model just because it's more affordable, and so many families want to be involved with their children in their education, and yet homeschooling all by themselves seems daunting. And so the hybrid model seeks to combine homeschooling with a 5-day school. And so with the hybrid model, they're only on campus 2.5 days a week, or half time. The rest of the time they're at home with their parents. And so it requires a high degree of coordination between school and home. There's got to be good communication back and forth. And in the model that we're using, there's the on-campus teacher, and then there's the home teacher, or we called them the professional teacher, and then the home teacher. But they are equal in a sense. But the key difference is the teacher on campus is planning the lessons, even for the parents at home. And so they're not down to the detail, but this, they would identify, you have to take care of this, we'll take care of this. And so there was, different responsibilities very clearly articulated, and because it has to be clear. So the school maintains the records for the students. And so it is very much like a private Christian school. In the parent experience, our school had uniforms, and it felt very much like a private school, just shorter. The parents have to commit to it, because sometimes they want to, not commit the time to it, but they have to in order to have their children have a good education. And this is different from like co-ops, where homeschool families take their children to co-op classes, and they supplement what the homeschooler is doing. And so it's a little bit different than what we are trying to do. And, as the numbers show, parents really like that. And so it's really for those families that want to homeschool and yet aren't really sure they can do that all on their own.
And for this families who are doing that, if they're wanting to, I guess the other difference maybe too would be, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, if homeschooling, you're going to pick, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And if they're doing a hybrid model, you're saying, hey, here's actual homework we want you to work on for those 2 days when you're at home, or are they kind of on their own for those 2 days at home?
No, that's a very good question, because a lot of times, homeschool families, the whole point is they want control of everything themselves. And so they lose some of that control, but we tell the parents they're free to do whatever they want beyond what the school has assigned. So They are, as I say, they are free to add on to it, but there are certain things that we expect and that we will be grading there to make sure they're making progress toward knowing what they need to for each grade and ultimately for graduation. So the school I was part of at this point only goes through 8th grade, so hasn't traversed high school yet. That's the next. They're adding a grade a year.
Okay, very good. Well, obviously with a hybrid school, you already mentioned this, it's cheaper, it's usually more affordable. So obviously with that, that means less funding that's available to pay for things that maybe the school needs. Maybe if they wanted to have their own sports teams and fields and facility and all that, that becomes a challenge to typically maybe not be able to afford their own on their own. And so I know that they have to get creative. Maybe it's using a office building or potentially churches. I'd love to kind of hear a little bit about the partnership. I think you guys are specifically, your partner with obviously one church, and I know there's other schools that have done the same thing. I'd love to just hear a little bit about what that looks like when you guys are partnering and what that dynamic looks like of, obviously, is it cheaper rent? Is it, you can use the building whenever you want? What does that kind of look like for schools that use the facilities of a church?
Yeah. So both schools that I've been a part of were part of a church. And so I'm very comfortable with that. But it's a partnership. And so it requires giving on both sides. There has to be really good communication between the school and the church. And honestly, the church will always be in the driver's seat in this regard because it is them that is hosting the school. Now, in both schools that I've been involved with, the church is actually sponsoring the school. It's not just renting out the facility. The church is committed to the school. This is one of their ministries. And so that changes the dynamic quite a bit from schools that, and I've known many schools that have had to do this, kind of go around to different churches trying to find a facility that would host them. This is different. There'd be no reason for the school to go anywhere else because the church is providing the facilities. It's one of their ministries. There's not actually rent that is charged because it is a ministry of the church. But as you mentioned, there are a number of logistical things that have to be addressed, particularly in a founding situation, a startup situation. So we went through the facilities early on and talked about how the specific classrooms that they have, how would they work in a school setting. And we talked about how a standard setup needed to be in the classroom and what we would do for the weekend when the church would be using them. So basically, the school has the facility during the school day, for the most part, even at night, although there are times when the church could need them. And so, again, that's that partnership. You have to both be able to flex. But we talked through it and exactly how the rooms would be set up and how we'd use them. And that changes from year to year as the school grows and takes over more rooms. Obviously, they didn't need them all at the beginning. But the key thing is that the church already had classrooms, suitable classrooms for schools. They weren't fitted out exactly the way they needed to be. We added standing desks in them that could be raised or lowered, and but the church already had Apple TVs in all the rooms with monitors that the teachers could easily project to. We provided laptops for them so that they could have a seamless experience from one room to the other. So all of that was done in conjunction with the church. So there was significant investment on the part of the church, not in terms of building anything. It was all there, but and they actually, this wasn't necessary for the school, but they actually remodeled all the bathrooms in the gym building where the school would be. But that wasn't just for the school, but it made it much better for us. So yeah, the relationship with the church is so important. And so the elders of the church were on board. They commissioned this whole project. Now, I only met with the elders a couple times. Instead, there was a committee of the elders that I met with, and that the current head of school still does, in order to iron out any concerns with facility use and just making sure everything's on track.
Hey, school success makers, Mitchell here. I just want to take a really quick break from the show to give a big, huge shout out to the Herzog Foundation. I absolutely love the Herzog Foundation. I've been friends and partners with them for a couple of years now, but we're bringing it to a whole new level. And I'm excited to share that our very own School Success podcast is now featured on the Herzog Foundation Podcast Network. The Herzog Foundation is a powerhouse of resources designed to support schools like yours, from free training events through the Herzog Foundation Institute to their incredible online news publication, The Lion, and of course, our new podcast, Home. They have everything you need to stay informed and inspired. And if you're dreaming of starting your own Christian school or co-op, don't miss their online course, Schoolbox. It's a fantastic resource to help you get started on the right foot. At School Success, we're proud to partner with the Herzog Foundation to bring you these valuable tools and insights. So visit herzogfoundation.com to explore all they have to offer. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on these amazing opportunities for growth and success. And I love all the people over there, and I know you guys will too. So please, please go check them out, and you won't be disappointed. Now, back to the show. Awesome. Well, I know for the hybrid model, if somebody is going to a traditional school, obviously that is very unique. That they're used to Monday through Friday, full days that they're there, and they hear about this hybrid model, and they're like, this sounds like a perfect fit. It's closer to our home. Maybe it's a Christian education, and that's what they're looking for. But then they're like, hybrid. I've never thought about that or done that before. I'll love you to kind of just share. I'm sure this has happened with some of the students at the school where they were a traditional, even if traditional Christian school or public school, and they transitioned into hybrid. What does that transition look like? Because obviously, I'm sure there's a dynamic of the family component that it could be strained a little bit too. If they're like, oh well, we both work full time. Is that not possible anymore? Does one family member need to not be working full time? And I'd love any just thoughts on that, of like what that's looked like from people who have had had transition into the hybrid model from a traditional model school.
Yeah. And, all of our families did that except for the kindergarteners. Even some of them, I guess, had older students as well, but so they had all transitioned from some other type of school. The main requirement is that one of the parents has to be available on the days when the kids are not in school. And so there's no reason, if they've got the time and ability to do that. And sometimes it's not the parents, sometimes it's a grandparent that will take care of it, or another family member. But if they can address that, then the hybrid model feels very much like a normal school. But somebody has to be there on those 2.5 days. So if they're coming from public school, there's two adjustments there: public to private, from secular to Christian. And so most of the families that we had were loving that. That's why they wanted to do that. Moving from homeschool to this, where they were handling everything by themselves, it's a dream, just because now they don't have to manage everything themselves. Now, sometimes homeschool families, as I mentioned before, really want to control everything. And so it may not be that good of a fit. We didn't have that experience, but I can see where that could be a potential problem. Over the 3 years, I think so far the best transition's just been those that have kids just starting school and they don't know any different, and they just plan for this. And I suppose the target is families where there's a stay-at-home mom. That's the easiest transition. But, a lot of the families have many children. And so this is still going to be a challenge in order to manage that. And so we actually did a video that's on the website that highlights a family who had done everything. They had done public school, they'd done private school, they'd done homeschool, and they finally landed at Foothill Christian Academy, and it was a dream for them just because it was the best of all the worlds.
That's awesome. Well, the I guess for hybrid, speaking into this a little bit for me, obviously, and again, going back to the money piece real quick, I know you mentioned obviously it's going to make less money because it's half time. Are the teachers then working second jobs typically, or are they like, hey, no, I just wanted a part-time job and this is a good transition for me? Because obviously that's a different component, because I know it could go two ways for sure. Like a teacher's like, well, I really need the full-time income, or somebody going, oh, perfect, I wanted to teach, but I can only do part-time. This is a perfect fit. So kind of real quick, like what does that look like when it comes to staffing for a school?
Yeah. So most of our teachers are at the tail end of their careers. A couple of them had taught in school and then went home to raise their own children, and now we're reentering. Um, yeah, one of them was had stepped out and wasn't teaching, and then she stepped back in. They were the first year they were all from the church, Foothill Bible Church, and then it's a big enough church that had enough teachers like that. And then the second year we added another teacher, and then the following year, but those next 2 years we added teachers that were not part of the church. So, and they were very different. Again, one of them was a guy that had retired from public school, and he had retired because he was tired of all the public school stuff as a teacher. And so to teach at Foothill was perfect because he could still continue his career, and yet he still had time off in his week because he was only teaching half time. And then the new teacher this year has several kids that she brought into the school. And so it's very individual, but yeah, they don't get paid as much. So they have to be able to get by on less. Long term, I think that there's a very real possibility that the school will have two cohorts. And so they'll be able to hire teachers full time, but they'll teach 2.5 days to one cohort and 2.5 days to the other cohort. So a family would have to pick which cohort so they don't have to keep coming back to school every day. But so far, that's how it's worked out. Finding teachers could become more of an issue in the future. I don't know. But so far, it's kind of been teachers who are a little bit older and have taught somewhere else, sometimes private school, sometimes public school. It's a little harder getting them from public school in California because their retirement is all tied up with public school. And so, we did get the one teacher, but he had already retired. He'd already made that decision. So yeah, it's a good question about where the teachers come from, and they have to be willing to get paid a little less. But what we did is we said, okay, what would we pay a full-time teacher? And we say, well, they're here half time, so we'll give them half-time pay plus another 10% for all the things that they do with teaching. And so it's not full-time according to public school, but it actually is pretty good pay for even private school. One of the teachers that came had been at a private school teaching full-time, and she made virtually the same at our school. So we wanted to be competitive that way.
Yeah, I like that. I heard from we haven't even interviewed the school yet. There'll be an upcoming interview. So this probably what I'm talking about probably won't launch until 2026. But they have a specific model. They're a hybrid school up in Pittsburgh, and they were sharing that they're just a high school hybrid school model. And when they shared their model with me, I was like, whoa, I really like it. It made a lot of sense. And they said, we've been able to find the best of the best when it comes to teachers because we can find people that have full-time jobs, but will come in and teach a class a week for something like entrepreneurship or a crazy math class, because they might be a professor at a college, but come over and help this school out for one class a week. And I was like, Oh, that's really good, because otherwise, how are you supposed to snatch some of these really, really good people away who have full-time gigs because they're very good at what they do, or they're retired, like you said. So they'll pull retired people over to come teach. I was like, you know what? They're kind of buying me in now. I kind of like that model a lot when it comes to who they kind of get the pick of the litter. They said they get these big business people to come in and teach, because they're not asking them to work 40 hours a week or 20 hours a week for the school. So I really like that. I mean, obviously there's a piece of that that can come into play with what you guys are doing too, but that's what it reminded me of. And we haven't even interviewed them to hear that story. That's just what I heard on my pre-interview call with them. So I love that. And so obviously with what you're talking about, with what you're doing, I'm assuming the teachers, as well as the head of school, whoever's leading this, is going to have to wear many hats, like multiple, like I know schools, educators wear multiple hats already, but I'm thinking this is even on a heightened level, that you're going to have to touch a lot more things. Is that true? Because like, what are some of those hats? Like, let's say from the head of school or administrator's point of view, what are some of those hats that they're going to have to wear when they're running a hybrid school?
Yeah, especially the first year. I kind of wore all the hats that's not in the classroom. I didn't teach, but someone has to be available for all the other things, meeting with new families and dealing with issues. So yeah, the especially early on, it's manning the school database. Now, we did hire someone at the front desk who was there while school was in session, and so that's very important. But that person wears a dozen hats too, helping teachers with arranging field trips and managing the database. And so actually after the first year, we changed how we did that, because we had to have someone who was a database expert who could do the registrar functions in order to manage that. But yeah, I mean, visiting classrooms, and of course we're a Christian school, so we have chapel one day a week, making sure that's arranged for, coordinating with facilities, because it's a school, kids get sick or there's a mess in the bathroom or something. So again, those are things that you have to work out with the church as well. We didn't hire our own people; we used the church people, and that could change, as the school grows. There may need to be a little bit different there, and the teachers, it's stressful for them, because they're feeling the responsibility to get through this curriculum, but they're depending on somebody else to do part of it. And so we actually changed how we did things from the first year to the second year to try to tighten that up a little bit. But we also do what we call a parent university. It's a one-day training that we do before the school year begins. It's required of parents to come and get some training on how to use the tools that we're using and what's expected. It's an all-day thing in order to have good coordination between the teachers and the home. And so but it is stressful for the teachers. I don't want to minimize that at all. And the teachers would appreciate hearing me say that, because, sometimes it can seem like administration has these demands and the teachers have to live them out. But we had good communication with the administration and teachers.
Hey, I just want to take a really quick break from the podcast to highlight one of our amazing partners and sponsors, ClassReach. If you're a new school administrator or founder and are struggling to keep up with all the hassles of planting a new school, like collecting tuition, communicating with parents, or handling student data, then you need ClassReach. ClassReach is the all-in-one software that helps with everything from admissions and tuition to classroom management and parent communications. Sign up for a free consultation with one of their school specialists and see how ClassReach can help your school grow today. You guys can check them out online, classreach.com. They are a kingdom-minded company, and I love their leadership team there. I've become friends with a lot of them. They truly are a great company. I support them, and I love them, and you guys will love them too. Check them out at classreach.com. Now, back to the show. What are some of the challenges and opportunities, would you say, that are up against a hybrid school?
I think one of the challenges that we're hitting on is with finding teachers, because if you're looking for, if teachers are looking for full-time position, the hybrid school, at least the way we're doing it, isn't able to do that at this point. I mean, again, maybe in the future. And there is a hybrid school over in LA, and they do have 2 full-time cohorts, so their teachers are full-time. So for, a startup, finding teachers is a stress. I think if you don't have a church to actually do this in, that is its own stress. Like if somebody has a burden that they want to do this, finding a church or a facility. If you have to rent the facility, there's additional costs. I think just startup costs. In our situation, the church was willing to bear them, and they raised money for it. Anytime you start a school, one way to think of it is you're starting in the hole. You've got a lot of expenses before school opens. And so you have to find a way to finance that. And then either that's just been donated, or if you had to take a loan, you have to pay that back. And so the first school I was involved with up in Washington State, they dealt with that essentially pushing a wave for a decade, before they finally essentially found a way to clear that off the books, because you're starting in the hole. So I think that's another challenge, is just the whole financial aspect, and to make sure that you budgeted carefully to make it viable for the long term.
And then are there any core pieces of opportunity that you would say for a hybrid school, like, hey, this is a huge opportunity that maybe a hybrid school has that a homeschool like co-op wouldn't have, or a traditional model school wouldn't have, but specifically hybrid has?
Well, I think it's absolutely a phenomenal development that these homeschool or hybrid homeschool is developing. I mean, it's amazing, because families, they want involvement with their children in education, but homeschooling is daunting. And, through the years, I met with many homeschool families coming into our full-time school, and it falls on the mom. She's the one who usually feels the most burden over this and wanting to provide good education for their children. And so the homeschool hybrid model is just a godsend for them. I've talked with people in the church that don't have these opportunities, and they go, "We'd sign up for that in a heartbeat." So I think that's the thing that is really a great opportunity, and the cost is less. 45 years ago when I got involved, the cost wasn't nearly as great in terms of percent of income. But now, if you go to any, credible Christian school that's been there for a while, they're going to, the cost of each child to attend that school is going to be well over $10,000, sometimes $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. So it just depends on the school. So this is, we're able to do it more cheaply. And part of it is the partnership with the church that we have that kind of reduce costs. One more, as I thought more about that previous question, challenges is also really getting the parents to do their part. Some parents are overly diligent. Some parents are not as diligent. So that's something to bear in mind as well, that is a challenge for the hybrid school, and making sure that there's good communication back and forth, and that they're well trained and that they're willing to do it. I mean, we didn't have to ask anybody to leave the school, but that may eventually happen if a family signs up thinking they can do it and they really can't.
Sure. Awesome. Well, I have one final question for you before we wrap up for today's episode. I ask everybody the same one as we end it. So if you could share one final piece of advice with the school leaders listening. It could be anything. You've been doing this a long time, but one final piece of advice, what would that one final piece of advice be?
What caught me by surprise was the lead time that was necessary for the school database. I know that's a very technical thing, but just make sure you sign up for that in plenty of time because it takes them a while to set it up and to get all your courses, and because it requires some thinking about things that, I'd been head of school for many years, but I didn't deal with that level of detail. And so, exactly what are the courses called? And, they kept asking me questions that left me scratching my head. And so, once you start signing up students, that database needs to be ready to go. And you sign up students, 6 months before classes start. So you just work that out, and you better be talking to whoever that is a good year in advance to make sure that you get signed up in time. And again, there's a cost to that. So that's some of that planning cost-wise, and make sure you budgeted carefully.
Awesome. Well, Tim, you've been doing this a long time. I appreciate you coming and sharing some of your wisdom from all these years in education. And obviously, thank you for taking time out of your day to hop on the School Success podcast and speak to our listeners. And obviously, I just want to say thank you for all of your years of pouring into the next generation and for helping raise up future leaders in the schools and the teachers and all these different things. I just thank you, and wishing you nothing but the best in this next chapter of your life that you have ahead of you.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been great talking.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Tim for taking time and being on the podcast today. I love what he's doing with his school there in California, and I'm wishing them nothing but the best as they continue to grow and educate the next generation that's coming behind us. And you guys know this. As always, I'm hoping you guys are able to take at least one thing away from today's episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. And before you guys go, I do want to make sure you are aware of our 3 free resources available here at School Success. The first one, congrats guys, you're already doing it. It's the School Success podcast. We are dropping episodes every single Monday morning, and we want to make sure you're not missing out on those. So make sure you are subscribed. And if you love our content, we would love a 5-star review. Really would mean a lot to myself and our team. We do work really hard to get these out every single week. And I think we're at, as recording this, we're over 200 episodes, I think, launched, and we have more in our Google Drive ready to go out. So it's been hundreds of episodes. It's been a lot of fun. So I hope you guys are enjoying the content as much as we are. The second free resource is our website. On our website, it's schoolsuccessmakers.com. In the top right-hand corner is a button, the School Success Report. It is a weekly email we send directly to all the people who have subscribed to it with different resources our team has either found or written to help you, the school leader, be more successful. We want to make sure you're not missing out on that as well. And it's free. So it's pretty awesome and a no-brainer, so make sure you're getting that. Last but not least, community is so incredibly important for anybody, but especially school leaders, to not feel alone in what they're doing at their school. So please go over and join our Facebook community, School Success Makers. Again, completely free. And I'm personally in there. Would love to see you in there as well. Get to know you and your school and what you're doing. So go join that right now. Other than that, we will be back here next week with another awesome guest as usual on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Herzog Foundation.